It all started with a very simple idea. Tell the stories of how successful middle market CEOs made it to the corner office. I'm Brant Handley, founder and managing director of Resource Options International, or ROI. We're the USA's premier executive search firm focused exclusively on empowering middle market companies to attract, hire, and retain A players while transforming top executives' careers and lives. ROI's Into the Corner office is dedicated to discovering how middle market CEOs advance their career, and we're making these remarkable and sometimes quite unbelievable stories available to you for the very first time. Listen and learn about the challenges they've overcome, the interesting people they've met along the way, and the lessons learned that steered these executives' unique journey into a middle market corner office of their own. I know you enjoy these CEO stories as much as I've enjoyed recording them. So thank you for listening today. And if you like what you've heard, rate us on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. I'm looking forward to you joining me on the next great middle market CEO adventure into the corner office. Today, my guest is Obadiah Ostergard, CEO of Vine Hospitality and the Left Bank Restaurant Group. He is responsible for all aspects of operations, overseeing the core values of the company, drive quality, have fun, and make it happen. Obi began his culinary industry journey as the executive chef at Gaylord's in Hawaii. He then ventured to Delaware, where he was invited to open a café for MBNA America, moving on to the roles of executive chef and executive catering director. During his time in Delaware, he also co-owned The Vault and Restaurant 821, both of which he led as general manager. Obi then moved to San Francisco to join the Kimpton Hotel and Restaurant Group, where he was eventually promoted to Director of Operations. Prior to taking over as CEO from Ed Levine, the founder of Left Bank Restaurants, Obi was the president of A Bon Repas, where he oversaw all aspects of operations. Obi Ostergard, welcome into the corner office.
Thank you so much for having me. Really excited to be here.
It's great to have you here, and we're literally recording just a few days before Christmas, although this will be airing sometime into the new year. And it sounds like you really got into the spirit. You were sharing with me how you've been running around to all your offices in your Santa suit, or your restaurants, rather.
Yeah, it's been quite the interesting few days, and a tradition started a few years back.
That's awesome.
Delivering all of our employees gifts in the Santa suit. So
that's great. I love it. What a way to get into the Christmas spirit.
A lot of fun. Santa's pretty unrecognizable when you're in a suit. So
that's right.
I think the new people don't know who it is, and yeah, it's pretty fun when they figure out actually who's in the suit. So
that's terrific. Great. Well, the spirit is with us, and thank you so much for sharing that bit. But let's talk a little bit about your early years and, where you grew up and what your early family life was like, Obi.
Sure. Yeah. I actually was born in Puerto Rico.
Okay.
And that was because my so Obadiah Ostergard, back in the 1700s, if you wanted your son to be a whaling captain on Nantucket, you named him Obadiah.
That's what it sounds like. Yeah, exactly.
And I come from a long line of seafaring folks. So,
no kidding. Wow.
My father was running a research vessel for Oceanographic Institute, and it was based out of Puerto Rico for a few years. So while they were down there, while the family was down there, I happened to be born.
That's great. And did you grow up there?
No. So it unfortunately only lasted about 6 months. So my Spanish is still struggling to this day. Right. But I wish I'd picked up more in the womb.
Brothers and sisters, Obi?
Yep, older brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
So then eventually through a few other ports, we ended up in Maine.
Okay.
And grew up on a farm in Maine, about 110 acres.
Nice.
My father was still going to sea, but we did raise quite a bit of our own food, grow quite a bit of our own food.
Nice. Yeah.
And really, started kind of a love for the land and appreciation for food through that.
You were eating organic before it was popular.
Absolutely. Yeah. But not only eating it, but producing it.
Mom was stay at home, or did she work the farm and was involved in that as well?
And then also was a nurse.
Oh my gosh!
So she she got stuck with a lot when my dad was out to sea. That's for sure.
Imagine. How long would he be gone? How long period of time?
Sometimes over multiple weeks. Up to a month. So.
And you said three younger brothers and sisters, or?
No, I have two older.
Two older.
Two older brothers and sisters, and then we also have we had a foster child that lived with us that was in that same range. So they shared the brunt of. I was a little young, so they definitely worked harder than I did. That's for sure.
Right. Was it a working farm in the sense that products were sold then too, right, to the local community?
No, really all for our own consumption.
Own consumption. Yeah, got it. Terrific. Well, tell me about some of the early inspirations, particularly from mom and dad and older brothers and sisters.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, for me, just growing up with, having goats, sheep, cows, chickens, and a real appreciation, for that direct route from, okay, you go to the barn and then you
there's your breakfast.
Yeah, and then you get the eggs, or
raw input. Yeah,
you get the dairy and you make cheese out of it, and definitely a lot of time spent in the kitchen as a family producing food and also canning and things like that in the summertime, because Maine only has one growing season.
It's pretty cold. Yeah, right.
So you got a long winter to get through for sure.
Sure. Were you in a rural area?
Yeah. Pretty rural, very, heavy fishing community also.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And then, a big inspiration for me though, growing up was I have on my mother's side, my grandparents who I would spend every summer with on Cape Cod. I would spend, from anywhere from 6 weeks to 8 to 10 weeks with them,
nice.
Depending on the summer. Yeah, there was a wonderful science school. This is actually in Woods Hole, where Oceanographic Institute is.
Right. And was your father based out of there? Was that his research location?
Not at that, not at that. Yes, from the Puerto Rico days, yes.
Right.
When I got a little, he went back to commercial fishing for a while during my kind of mid-range years. So, it was mainly, they would be in and out. My parents would be in and out, but I would really be based with my grandparents.
Nice.
Going to the science school there. There was an amazing science school, still is an amazing science school in Woods Hole. And I would do a 6-week program there.
Nice.
But my grandfather, 100% Italian, Renato Ricca. And definitely a real appreciation for food, gathering the family around the table, around meals. It's rare for me that I get an orange in my hand and I don't think of him, because, every morning would be sitting at the breakfast table, peeling oranges and eating them. And then, sometimes we'd go out to one of the islands and harvest quahogs.
Oh, fascinating.
And then bring those back and make white clam sauce with that. And again, gather everybody around the table.
You're making me hungry, Obi. This is not going to work here. I got to bring a snack the next time I talk to you. Well, what about time for school? Were you involved in, was it a small rural school in Maine there that you grew up in? Were you, K through 12 or what? Tell me a little bit about that experience.
Pretty rural. School, went from kindergarten through 6th grade in St. George, Maine. And 1 through or K through 6 was all in one building, but pretty much it was multiple communities that came together to St. George to go to school. Right. I don't know the number off the top of my head. It was a few hundred kids, right, to K through 6.
But were you defined classes, or were there multiple grades together? Okay, it was big enough for that. Yeah,
pretty defined classes. Yeah, actually, one of my stories that I think is pretty funny, and I'm not sure I really want to tell it in a public setting.
Now you have to.
But I will.
You brought it
up. Yeah. So back to rural, back to Maine. Not a whole lot of Obadiah Ostergards.
I can imagine.
Right, roaming around with parents that were raising most of their food on the land and things
John
like that.
John Smiths and Mary Jones and other New England names. Yeah,
for sure. So I had a good, one of my good friends over who was one of the, top lobsterman families out of Port Clyde. And we were, I think, in the kitchen doing what the family does. And I was working away, and I actually distinctly remember, I think I was like wiping counters, and Travis, who was my friend, he said to me, "Jesus, Obi, someday you're going to make somebody a good wife."
Oh my gosh. I love it. That's great. That is great. And how old were you at the time?
I'm thinking like 8, 9.
Oh, great. Great. Yeah. Thanks a lot. Well, outside of your joy for cooking and all things natural, were there other things that you did in, school, sports, music, theater, or, did kind of work in the farm and class pretty much take up most of your time?
No, I was always, again, it's pretty small, tight knit community too.
Yeah.
So definitely was, didn't, through that grade school experience, didn't do a whole lot of extracurricular activities other than kind of the normal sports things. But I didn't have any, through sixth grade, I didn't have any that I recall any huge extracurriculars other than doing kind of the normal community things. I'm sure. Oh, I did play. I played Little League and did those type of things. So it was very, fairly in that community and what we were doing.
Yeah, cool. What about entrepreneurial things? I don't know if there was a rural paper route that you were involved with or other money raising things that you did at that time.
I live down a mile-long dirt road.
Oh, wow.
And I was actually the first person on the bus line and then therefore the last person to get off. The last one also, and it was a good, I don't know, it's 15 miles probably or something like that.
Right.
Yeah. So nothing like that went on. I definitely, if I was going to be doing labor, it was on the farm for sure.
Any jobs then going into school and then on to college that you were involved with? Any things outside the home?
I started, then when I was, I think about 10 or 11, I moved to a little bit, the family kind of dispersed, older brothers and sisters left, parents got divorced. And I moved to a more, urban setting for Maine, which was, Camden, Maine, which is a, 5,000 person town. And
college there is one of the colleges there. I'm trying to remember. I know.
Nothing in Camden.
Nothing in Camden. Yeah, nearby.
Nothing in Camden. Yeah. And so there definitely, started playing, continued on the baseball route for 6th, 7th, 8th grade. I went actually to an alternative small school for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade.
Okay.
That was called Riley, and Riley still exists. Actually one of my old classmates from Riley is back there teaching now. So it's like, cool. But it was a school that definitely had a little bit different take on learning, where you got to kind of pick your own paths, and then also had a lot of outdoor experiences. So during 6th, 7th, 8th grade, I did a lot of camping, a lot of canoeing, a lot of backpacking.
Fun.
So that was really great. I didn't start, so right around probably 8th grade was sometimes I tell the story two different ways in terms of the beginning of my hospitality career.
Right. What do you mean? It started when you were 4, right? It's been so long.
Jesus Christ, Opie.
Someday you'll make her a good wife. I love it.
Yeah, so there was a small inn in Camden, bed and breakfast type, and I would go there in the mornings on the weekends and help make muffins and things like that, and they delivered a little kind of, warm pastry basket to every room, and that was my job. I'd help a little bit in the kitchen, getting the pastries ready, and then I'd go out and drop off, and I think that was like a Friday, Saturday, Sunday gig for a few hours. And, I was probably, I don't know, 13 or so when I did that. And then and it was a lovely, it's a beautiful place. It's still there right downtown Camden.
Nice.
Called the Hawthorne Inn. And it's a, gorgeous old inn and a, 250-year-old house and so on and so forth. It's like
so many of those bed and breakfasts and inns throughout New England. They're so gorgeous.
Yeah. And really did, but, I think that, sometimes I reflect back and say, did I get a little bit of the itch for hospitality?
Sure.
Was it from my grandfather harvesting quahogs and eating around the table? Was it that?
It goes back a long ways. Was it just from what I can hear?
Yeah. Was it my first dishwashing job? I don't know.
Yeah, I think it was peeling those oranges. So was going to college a foregone conclusion? Was that something that, it sounds like higher education was important to both your dad and your mom, certainly your mom being a nurse, et cetera.
Yeah. My mom, actually, she went to Harvard, and my grandfather was
Harvard undergrad.
Harvard undergrad. Yep. My grandfather was a doctor.
Nice.
And but the mother and father didn't necessarily follow the normal path of education. Actually, I think my mother is one of the only people to get into Harvard without a high school diploma.
You're kidding. Oh my gosh. They still did that back in those days.
Right. Yeah. She was in Sweden as an exchange student, graduated early because of it somehow, didn't get the diploma, but got accepted to Radcliffe and like the very long story to that, then didn't finish Radcliffe, went to graduate school, didn't finish graduate school, finally wanted to go to community college to get her nursing, and they asked her for a high school diploma. She had to go back and get her GED.
Oh my gosh. That's crazy, huh? That is crazy. And Dad, was he Swedish as well? Is that where he grew up?
He did not. Mother just happened to. My mother was there on a foreign exchange program.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. Because on her side is Italian and German Jew.
Okay.
On my mother's side, and then on my father's side is where the Swedish blood actually does come in.
Okay.
But that's cool. That's cool. The Ostergard.
Right. And was he a doctorate or master's?
I went to Georgetown, dropped out, went to sea.
Oh, no kidding. Awesome. So you had some choices. I mean, was it expected of you that you would go to college, or did you make that choice along the way, or how did that come up?
Definitely expected from the grandfather level.
Yeah. Parents
a little bit more low key. Definitely wanted to, and journeyed my way to the University of Maine through that expectation, and also wanting, thinking that I was ready and wanted to go to college.
Yeah. Got it. And did you finish your degree there?
Nope.
Okay. Took a few classes and then probably were very engaged in the hospitality industry, I can imagine, as a lot of college students are.
Yeah, exactly. I think we might have been one of the only dorm rooms with an actual physical bar that we had built.
I love it. Oh, that's fantastic.
We were like, how many bunks can we get on one side of the room so we can build a bar on the other?
Fabulous. So did you go right out then to the workforce, or, what was that first job when you decided to leave college?
Yeah, took a journey to Florida. Mm-hmm. Found myself in a very small town called Cedar Key, which is directly west of Gainesville. And walked into the Brown Pelican kind of on my first day when I got there, and asked what they had for a job, and they said that they had a dishwashing job, and did I want it? And I knew I needed a job and didn't know any better, so I took it. The Brown Pelican was on the wharf, and I've never seen, I think still to my career this day, I've never seen so many fryers in my life.
Love it.
And the dish room was like a closet of steam and just really not a very pleasant experience.
Wow.
And I think on like day 3, they said to me, line cooks called out, do you know how to work the line? I'd never worked the line before in my life. I said, does that get me out of this little room?
You didn't have to ask that question twice, right?
I know how to cook. Oh, yeah, I do. No problem.
That's great. Yeah. That's great. But you switched over to the hotel at one point in time, Kimpton chain, one of my favorites. How did that come about? Or was it through the restaurant hospitality side that you joined Kimpton?
It was through the restaurant side. Side. I was coming from the East Coast, and I owned a few of my own restaurants in Wilmington, Delaware.
Nice.
We're jumping forward a little bit there, but owned a few of my own restaurants there. Had basically made a blood contract with my now wife. She was at NYU Law School at the time.
Okay. Right.
Blood contract that she'd move to Wilmington, Delaware, if then I would move her to the Bay Area after.
Okay.
So that the contract had come up,
right.
and it was time to go.
Prove it out, right?
And we had just at that stage, we had just had a baby.
Nice.
Had Sophie, our firstborn.
I've got a Sophie as well.
And now who is now 15, so it's been a little
fantastic.
While.
Yeah.
So when we decided to make our way west, my wife Eliza went to undergrad at Stanford, knew that she wanted to get back to the Bay Area.
Right.
She's another New England person also.
Yeah.
I actually met her in Maine many moons ago.
Nice.
And when I landed, the first interview I had was with Kimpton.
Yeah, great.
And they they said, you got to work for us, but the only job we have, and I was thinking, like, at that time, Kimpton hotels were in San Francisco, and they were the fifth floor, and they were,
right.
They were Scalas, and they were Colettos, and they
That's
were
right.
all these amazing brands, and Kimpton hotels, and there was, it's called Kimpton Hotels and Restaurants, and it really did treat kind of them, together, but also separate.
Sure.
And I was definitely on the restaurant side.
Yeah.
But they said, we have at that time, I think they had 43, 45 restaurants throughout the country, and there was only one that didn't have a hotel attached, and it was in Burlingame, Coletto's Trattoria, and they said, we've got this job for you. Yeah. And I was like, oh my gosh, that wasn't.
That's not what you were expecting.
Wait a minute.
But Burlingame's that's a cool little town.
It is
a cool little town.
Yeah, this restaurant was funny though. It's like right on the highway, and it was, it wasn't in downtown Burlingame.
Yeah.
But I was like, Kimpton. It was, Kimpton was on the top of my list for places that I wanted to work in the Bay Area, and so I was like, all right, we'll do it.
Well, I'll say that's part of the success that I've seen with many of our CEO guests, volunteering for things or doing things that you don't necessarily think may be the best career builder, but, there's no one else available. So you basically go and get it done. How long were you at that restaurant?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I didn't know, of course, when I took the job was that Nikki Leondakis, who was the COO at the time, lived in Burlingame.
So that was one of his favorite restaurants. There you go.
Her favorite restaurant.
Got it. So you got some exposure early on there.
Yeah, so I got some exposure to Nikki right out of the gate. And 8 months later, an opportunity came up in San Francisco for Coletto's, and I moved up to San Francisco.
That stuff makes sense. God was watching out for you. But when was the first time you started managing people, Obi?
Oh, wow. I mean, let me see. I think that we'd go back in time, and after Florida, I was gonna go to the Culinary Institute of America in Hyde Park. So it's summertime. I come back from Florida. It's summertime. I've applied to go to CIA. I'm like ready to pack my bags and head to upstate New York, and I go and see family friends who spend their winters on Maui. And they say, the culinary scene on Maui is really taking off. And I said, excuse me?
Where?
And I'm like, you're going to put me up for a couple of weeks while I get my feet. And so I decided not to go to the CIA, and I moved to Maui instead.
Changed.
Yeah, spent about 3 months there without a job.
Right.
Because no one wanted to hire a 110-pound cook that had worked in one restaurant before. Right. And was definitely not local.
Yeah.
But then I ended up.
What do you know about mahi, right?
Exactly. Yeah, but I ended up at the Kula Lodge, and got hired on the spot.
Awesome.
And worked my way up so that, I started as a dish prep in that kitchen. And I, over a 3-year period of time, worked my way up to executive sous.
Nice.
So that was the first.
That's a management job.
First management job where I was, managing a kitchen, managing a crew. And it was the Kula Lodge is it's on Haleakala. Now, when you go back to Haleakala, there's like 5 restaurants there.
Yeah.
But when we opened, we were there, we were the only one.
That's cool.
And it was beautiful. It had little houses. It had a gorgeous outdoor patio with a brick burning oven, and
nice.
Local farmers all around it. And it was actually a protea farm also.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was a pretty cool property. And the chef took me under his wing, and I worked my way through that kitchen, and cool. Ended up learning some great management skills there, for sure, from some really caring owners.
Yeah, what were some of those lessons from those early management days?
I think one of the bigger ones for me, and I think it translates across many different businesses, but you've got to master the skill. but it really speaks in kitchens.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, if you can master the skill and be as competent as anyone, then you can gain the respect of others, but also be a great teacher and mentor of what those skills are.
Right.
And that's really definitely carried throughout my career for sure, is really trying to master the skills, understand them in the best way possible, so that not only can you gain, I think, a quicker understanding and respect from people, but then also be a great mentor and teacher.
Yeah, awesome. If you had to identify maybe one of the best or worst lessons you've learned from previous bosses, and no names need to be mentioned if it's the latter, what would that be? Sometimes observing bad bosses' behavior can be as insightful and as impactful and perhaps even sometimes traumatic. But, those lessons are well learned. If you had to look back, who are some of the mentors or perhaps bosses that you've had that you've learned things that either what to do or what not to do?
Yeah, no, it's, I think it's almost, that's a great question. And, have had definitely both for sure. And,
most of us have.
And I think that, you actually, and I think it's a good thing that I try to remember also with leadership, is that I actually tend to remember the really bad ones. Mm-hmm. I of course have some great mentors that that stick with me, and it's been a long term and those ones. But in terms of, if you think about a short term good manager that maybe did a couple things for you, you don't necessarily remember what those were.
Right.
Short term manager did a couple horrible things, like those stick out a lot more.
They stick with you.
Yeah.
So any specific, again, without mentioning names, any specific behavior that you can recall from one of those experiences, you go, I'm never going to do that.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, one of the ones that stands out for sure, and I've definitely had multiple bosses like this, where they just don't, they have a problem and they don't address it.
Right.
And it comes out in other ways, or, you find out in other ways, or there's triangulation, and, there's never a good result from that.
Right.
And I think on the, but also those conversations that need to be had tend to be tough conversations, and tend to need to be dealt with, in a caring and compassionate way. And many times those people just didn't have those skills to be able to have those conversations.
Right.
And then, for me, the flip side of that is, I would actually say one of the better, moments that I've had with somebody that was I was a direct report to, was when they did sit me down and give me some really tough love.
Yeah, that's right.
And really let me know, very directly, very straightforward, what, and gave me tools and resources to be able to correct the behavior.
Yeah, that's the important part.
Yeah. And then support, and then supported that, left it in my court to be able to decide what I want to do with it. But then was there to support and nurture. And I, actually, that was in my Kimpton career, and it was a low moment in my Kimpton career. And I actually always talk about that conversation as being the turning point in my Kimpton career, and it's what led me to being a director of operations for 9 restaurants and $30 million in revenue, and
there you go.
having all of San Francisco underneath my belt. So awesome. That was
So current role, you've been almost 3 years with Left Bank Brasseries and LB Steak, and I guess just a little over 2 years as CEO. You came in as president COO. Tell us a little bit about that operation. How big is it? Are you guys in a growth stage, and what attracted you to that organization?
Number one, Left Bank, the Left Bank brand has been in the Bay Area for 26 years, and it was started in Larkspur, in Marin County, in this wonderful building called the Blue Rock Inn, which has been around 200 plus years. So great historical downtown Larkspur location, and way back when, Ed Levine and Roland Passot came together through some coincidences to develop the Left Bank brand. there in Larkspur.
Cool.
And I've been, now in the Bay Area for 15 plus years, and Ed was a luminary in the restaurant world, not only for the Left Bank LB Steak brand, but also running Vine Solutions, which is a accounting firm and consulting firm for restaurants.
Okay.
So I'd always known Ed, and for my whole time out here. And then, if you're in the Bay Area, if you have ever thought about French food, if you like fine dining, you know who Roland Passot is.
Right, sure.
And, a luminary in the culinary world, lawfully for, I think, 32 years now in downtown San Francisco, fine dining, French restaurant. And Roland is just a wonderful, wonderful culinary mastermind.
Yeah. Awesome.
So I'd known both of them for a very long time. There was a moment in time, maybe 8 years ago or so, that Ed and I had a serious conversation about me joining. It wasn't the right time.
Yeah.
And then he reached out to me, probably 3.5, 4 years ago now, and said, Obi, this time, I don't think you're going to be able to say no. It's not, but it wasn't for a good reason.
Make you an offer I can't refuse, right?
Yeah, but it was for a horrible reason. It was because he was terminally ill.
That's right.
So that was again for me super honored,
Sure.
and really quite
your chosen successor.
Yeah. And he was right. The timing was right, but also the opportunity, and I think that the opportunity that he wanted to leave was an opportunity of growth. That was what he wanted to leave as his legacy. We worked on actually a new concept for the group. That was the last thing we did together. And actually it just opened in October, called Meso Modern Mediterranean restaurant in Santana Row.
Nice.
So, it took me.
That's down in San Jose, right?
Yep.
Yeah, cool. Just for our listeners globally that are checking in, Santana Row is a excellent culinary capital, really, and not that old, 10, 15 years. How long has it been around?
Yep, 15 years. Left Bank was the original tenant.
Oh, is that right? I didn't know
Left
that.
Bank Left Bank had started. I don't know. The story behind Santana Row is it burnt down.
That's right.
And Left Bank was one of the only ones that had started construction.
Incredible. Wow.
Yeah, before it burnt down, rebuilt, and it's
really revitalized the whole area down there. It's so much fun. I've been there several times in various different restaurants.
It's great, and the new thing is they're now adding quite a bit of office space. So not only is it residential,
it's really a
retail,
center.
It's also becoming a hub for office. So it's really a great mixed use community, and it's a lot of fun. I did make the mistake of showing up at the Christmas tree yesterday in Santana Row dressed as Santa, and it caused quite a commotion. I'll tell you.
I can imagine.
Yeah, it was.
I love it,
before I knew it, I had little dogs on my laps with sweaters and photos and people running towards me. And I'm just trying to get to Left Bank, folks.
Yeah, no, all of a sudden you're Santa in the mall. Oh, that's great. So how many employees? How many different locations now?
So we have about 450 employees.
Wow.
And we have the 3 Left Banks, so Santana Row, Menlo Park, and Larkspur.
And the original Larkspur,
And then LB Steak in Santana Row, and now newly Meso Modern Mediterranean. And then we do have also a partnership in Menlo Park with Camper Restaurants. So it's a wonderful spot that we did a partnership with in a space that we had an LB Steak in. And we converted it with Greg and Logan, who are 2 wonderful operators, and did a partnership deal with Camper there. It's been a great new addition to the Menlo Park.
My son lives up in San Mateo and works for a startup, and we've been thinking about a restaurant we're going to go out together when I'm there at Christmas. So I think LB Steak in Menlo Park may be our choice. I'll have to talk to you about a reservation there.
Yeah, Camper.
Camper. Okay, got it.
So, or if you want to go to the Brasserie, whichever you.
Or the Brasserie.
Yep.
Got it.
Those are your Menlo Park options.
Well, we'll have a separate conversation about that because I want to get your steerage on that. So tell me a little bit about how your leadership's evolved over time. We talked a little bit about those early days. Now you're running a pretty big organization, obviously growing. Reflecting back, what would you say have been some of the changes, Obi?
I just had a unique opportunity. So Kimpton was really into the Enneagram, and supporting managers through personal growth, and learning, about your personality types and management styles and such.
Right.
And the wonderful person, Amy Hung, who I had worked with at Kimpton, and done that work with, she's still around. It felt like it had been forever, but I reached out to her, and she just did some work with my director of HR, Antonio Nava.
Nice.
And then that results in kind of the two of us getting together and doing a relationship sync. But that, she gave me my one-page, kind of
summary.
Summary.
Here's your psychographic profile. Right?
from 10 years ago. Right?
Oh my gosh! From 10 years ago. Wow,
right.
Of course. Yeah.
So it was pretty cool though to get some insight. And I think one of the things that I know about myself, a couple things is that have really, really evolved is the ability to take on conflict. And I think that it's never that I wasn't able to take it on, but now being able to, evolve from, okay, maybe there's conflict that's happening and I'm involved in it, and I'm just going through, I'm doing it, to now being like, okay, this conflict needs to happen.
Yeah.
And in the past,
confronting it.
In past, I'd be like, let's procrastinate and avoid.
And that never helps anything or anyone.
Right. Yeah, and now I say, okay, here it is, and I know my personality, and say, I that my nature wants to just avoid that or procrastinate it. So now I really work hard to say, no, that's not what we're going to do, and we're gonna take the more what we know is a productive route, and sit down and have the conversations, and conflict. Even, conflict's a negative word, right? So maybe that's not the right word to use, but just, having those conversations and dealing with those situations that need to be dealt with. And some of those can be, all hopefully resulting in positive momentum.
Well, it never really works to delay those things.
Right.
And I remember the first person I had to fire, and it was so difficult and so hard. And then everybody said, "Why did you wait so long?" And you don't do anyone any favors, right, by delaying those types of decisions. You've moved into a real interesting company culture, someone that was a mentor of yours, someone that you admired. He brought you in as a successor. And, thinking about company culture, it's so important, particularly in the hospitality industry. What are your thoughts about that? Are you trying to continue in the same traditions? Are there changes that you're making? Share with us a little bit about building a company culture there.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the kind of the evolution that's happened is, you had the founder, who wasn't running day-to-day operations.
Right.
And there's a great culture, that there's an undertow of this amazing culture, and there's a clarity in what that culture is. And that clarity resonated with me a lot. And drive quality, make it happen, and have fun. Yeah.
I love that, by the way.
Yeah, for me too. It's like just right up my, obviously we're having fun when we're dressing up as Santa.
That's right. Yeah.
And I think we're making it happen too, right? So it's all good. I'm not sure we're driving quality. But I don't know, the guests are pretty happy to see Santa this time of year.
Right.
So,
that's right.
Maybe
there's something to be measured in that.
So there was an amazing foundation. I think that I was given the opportunity to come in as the daily operator and build on that foundation, and live it every single day, and drive it every single day, and have it be the focus every single day.
Right.
We've tacked on the mission to be one of the best hospitality groups in the Bay Area.
Nice.
And I think that we really have an opportunity to do that through the lens of drive quality, make it happen, and have fun. So for me, it was really about taking what was there and building on it, but more so, I think, having it be a daily routine and reminder for everybody, not something that showed up sporadically.
Right. 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 Did the have fun, drive quality, was that a part of the culture prior to you joining, or was that something that was an add-on since you've been there?
No, it was, that's been there. It was there prior to me. Yeah.
Awesome.
So it was again, it was just something great for me to take and run with and build on and put consistency around, I think, more than anything.
Awesome. Well, we're just about out of time, though. I do have a couple other questions and would like to get your perspective. And tell us a little bit about what you look for when you're making bets on the people you invest in and hire.
Yeah, wow, we're in an interesting time.
Indeed. Yeah.
I mean, it is tough.
It's hard to find good people.
tough going out there for sure.
That's right.
So for me, the number one entry to the dance is, do you come across as being a good person and somebody that is hospitable? Right. That we as a team that already is doing this every single day and living it, that, we say, we could see you being part of what we're trying to do, in terms of taking care of people every single day. And that taking care of people isn't the guest, it's the guest and the employee.
That's right. Yeah.
And on any given moment, the priority could be on the employee more so than the guest, for sure. Right. So, are you a good person? Yeah. Do you like to have fun? Right. And can you make it happen?
Yeah. Pretty simple.
Because the other one, the actual drive quality, we can probably teach.
Right.
Exactly. Right. We're pretty good at it. We know what we're doing. We've got a bunch of great people around us that, come from amazing backgrounds and have amazing skill sets. So, there's portions you can teach and there's portions you can't teach. And we definitely look for, the person that has the ones that are much harder to teach, and hopefully they got more of it from their mother and father and, whoever raised them.
That's right. That's right.
Or, who they were around. We really try to dig into that because, setting a table. And, and we can teach people which side the fork goes on.
Right. Terrific. Last question. We ask this of all our guests, Obi, is what career and life advice would you give someone that has got their own eyes on their corner office and maybe hopes to run an organization like yours someday?
Be flexible. Really know that the path to the corner office isn't necessarily a straight line.
Yeah.
And I think often, many, many more times than not, and you know that from the people you've talked to and the stories I've listened to of the people you've talked to, is that line is typically not straight, and and be okay with that and be patient with that, and know that the journey is a marathon and not a sprint. Right. And that if you can be reflective and take time to understand why it's zagging one way or zigging one way, that most likely there's some unbelievable learning opportunities that will come from that will make you grow and be a better leader.
Yeah, so true. Obi Ostergard, CEO at Left Bank Brasseries, LB Steak, and the Vine Hospitality Group. Thank you so much for sharing your journey into the corner office.
My pleasure. I appreciate it. Great talking with you.
Thank you for listening to Into the Corner Office with Brant Hanley. We hope you enjoyed hearing our guest CEO story as much as we did. If you want to hear more CEOs reveal their journey into the corner office, please subscribe via iTunes and tell your friends and colleagues. For more information about Brant, Resource Options International, and the mighty middle market, visit www.goforroi.com. We look forward to having you join us for our next episode.